Welcome back. It is your bestie in freight, Lida, and we have been doing more of these conversations lately because the industry is shifting. The fuel prices are skyrocketing. Fuel prices are changing the industry, and of course, the fraud is getting smarter, more organized, and way more expensive. So today we are talking about something a lot of people think they understand, but honestly, most don't: freight fraud. And not the obvious kind, the kind that looks normal until it is too late. So today I have an amazing guest, Victor Luis. He is the founder of Lot Secure. Thank you so much for joining in, Victor.
Lida, thanks for having me on. I'm happy to be a part of the fastest growing podcast in freight.
Thank you. Thank you, Victor. So you are not only just talking about the problem, you actually building and build solution around it. So, and also you have a background in freight brokerage, right?
I
Deep
do.
into operation and sales, now focused on fraud prevention, identity verification, and securing shipments before they move. So tell us about that.
So I've been in logistics for nearly 20 years now, and about 10 years ago I started my own logistics company and saw some of the shortcomings that we have when it comes to tracking and when it comes to connecting with carriers, verifying who these individuals are. Um, about 5 years ago, we started seeing double brokering and really the fraud around this industry. I think for a long time, um, people knew that there was fraud within the industry, but it, the fraud that surrounded the industry wasn't nefarious in nature. There was a lot of double brokering. There was some financial scams that went on here and there, but none of it really. It didn't affect the bottom line. It wasn't going to be catastrophic to your business. Um, During COVID, about 3-4 years ago, we really started seeing cargo theft spike. Um, the brokerage that I own uh, fell victim to a stolen shipment, and it sent me down a rabbit hole to where I really saw the issues that the industry was having and the inability to validate who you are using to ship your product, most specifically the driver. Um, we started then creating some proprietary technology for ourselves where we would validate, track drivers. We added in some digital documentation features, and we started pushing after we kind of perfected it within our system. I had a lot of my friends in the industry saw our product and said, I really would like something like this. And next thing I know, more and more individuals were coming to me. They didn't appreciate the users that they had for their or the vendors they had for their technology. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing led to another. We decided to spin off the whole technology component as a separate entity. And we've been running with that for um, officially about a year now. Um, and yeah, it's been good so far. So we've seen a lot of momentum with it, um, and I really like what the direction my business is going to try to identify and stop the fraud that's happening.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, congratulations on your first year. You made it, the first difficult year, right?
Yeah, and it's not been without its challenges, to put it mild.
Of course. So, Victor, tell us, why does so much fraud not look like fraud at first?
Um, for the most part, the reason that these things don't look like fraud is because the people who are scamming you, and really this goes for any kind of scam, they want to fly under the radar as much as possible. One of the things with shipping that gets very hairy is when you give the shipment to someone, it can take you days before you notice, well, it didn't deliver. Where is the cargo? Someone can string you along for, in some cases, 5, 6, 7 days at a time. Oh, my truck broke down. It'll deliver, tomorrow. It'll deliver the following day. And as a freight broker, we're all used to that.
Yeah.
So What we don't realize though is these individuals are using that window to get that cargo to either get that cargo overseas, to fleece the cargo, to basically cover their trails as much as possible. And that time period, it's like they say when there's a homicide, like the first 48 hours are the most important. Well, unfortunately with freight, we don't know a crime has occurred sometimes until weeks later.
I agree.
And that's where, when anybody can commit a crime where it goes undiscovered for weeks, it's going to be that much harder to catch the person who's doing this.
Yeah. So tell us, what are the most common normal looking situations that are actually red flags?
Um, the most common situation that we see is double brokering, where a driver will show up to a facility, or they'll book a shipment with a freight broker in this case, and a different driver will show up. A different company will show up. Now, not all of that is nefarious. Sometimes it's a sister company, or sometimes there's some plausible deniability, even though a lot of carriers know they shouldn't do that. Sometimes they're doing it just for a best business practice. They don't want to ruin their reputation for not picking a shipment up. Um,
Yes.
so there is a degree of that goes on. That's kind of the starting point where someone should question things. For the most part, what we do to identify and really believe we can stop the fraud is doing identity verification, making sure the driver is who he says he is. Because again, back to what we talked about earlier, when a shipment gets stolen and you don't know what happens for 2 weeks, part of the reason that it's very hard to detect is these individuals, they're ghosts. They do not want to operate. They don't want to be known. And with this, when we know who they are before they even pick up a shipment, you can apply background checks to it. There's a wide variety of things that we can do. We can cross-reference it in our entire system. Have they done other shipments for other people before? Has somebody else had this issue with them? So when you have the ability to do that, it stops fraud right there, because the bad actor goes on. They're going to go the path of least resistance. They're like water. They
Yes.
go the path of least resistance, and the simplest resistance that you put up against these individuals will cause them to go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. So there is this idea that if you can track a lot, it is secure. Why is this statement dangerous?
So one of the issues that other tracking platforms have is the ability to spoof location updates. Um, Many of these platforms also aren't in real time. With our app, it is in real time. It's constantly recording the location of the driver, and the way that individuals were operating within this ecosystem, they're using what's called an emulator. Mind you, the individuals that perpetrate this fraud, they're very sophisticated. They're not dumb.
No, they
They're
are.
involved in. I mean, think about it. If you had to take a truckload of product and fleece it, we're not talking about. In some cases, it can. I heard about a shipment of stolen candy. But these are, in a lot of this is like, some of this is industrial equipment. You see automobiles being stolen. You see equipment being stolen. Like, what these individuals are doing oftentimes is getting it out of the country and selling it on the international market. So they have connections. These individuals in these crime rings, we have very, very strong correlations between this and ransomware and other kinds of financial fraud. So what will happen is, when they are told to download an app and provide location updates, they'll use an emulator. An emulator mimics a cell phone, but it's on a computer. And what they look for is, they look for what's referred to as a callback request from the app. So in most cases, the callback request is latitude and longitude codes. So they'll simply plug in a lat and long code, hit enter, and it sends it to the platform that's providing location tracking, and it will emulate a cell phone and show them as this is their location when that is not their location at all.
Wow. Yes, as you said, they are definitely very smart. They are not dumb. They know
Yeah,
how to hack the system.
and that is one thing I think that we as a society and really um, uh, as an industry, I think people don't give. This sounds weird, but they don't give criminals enough credit for how intelligent some of these individuals are. They're not dumb, and the smart ones tend to thrive, and they find ways. Like with transportation in particular, they find ways that they can circumvent the system, and that's what they've done. And because the industry is so fragmented, and there are thousands upon thousands of freight brokerage companies and logistics providers, they're able to exploit that because all it takes is one company that doesn't know what they're doing, or that doesn't do that check, or you know, one of the things I've seen in logistics is you have to move fast. There's plenty, oftentimes you'll walk into the office and, hey, I have a load that needs to get covered today. I had a last minute fallout. It has to pick up by noon and I have 2 hours to get a truck in. I'm not going to take an extra 15 minutes to verify who this individual is. And I'm just going to send them in and I'm going to hope because for the most part, you're not going to have something bad happen. The problem
Exactly.
is when something goes wrong, it's catastrophic. It's like those
Exactly.
planes don't crash either, but if 1% of them did, there'd be a huge problem.
I
So
agree.
that's kind of how we have to take this. And these individuals just continue to do this across the industry. Um, and it's really affecting one of the issues that I see is one company that provides transportation solutions. The companies that don't go through the proper due diligence when they assign their carriers are perpetuating this, and it's getting worse and worse. So it's really important for us um, with Load Secure to be able to educate shippers and educate
Exactly.
brokers. This is what you need to do, and this is the risks that you're
You're taking, yes.
taking. It's not it's not just your problem, it's the entire industry's problem, and it continues to fester and get worse because individuals don't do their due diligence with us.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Victor. This was a really amazing comparison. The airplane crash and the saved cargo, because it doesn't happen every day, but when it happens, as you said, it can be catastrophic. So, in your opinion, where do most security failure actually happen? Before pickup, during transit, or after delivery, or like before delivery?
Well, they can happen all along the way in transit. um, there can be some security failures in transit, but usually those are out of negligence and not, a driver opens the back of his truck and breaks a seal and doesn't realize what he's, the issues that can cause. Um, we do see some fraud upon delivery where drivers will skim cargo. And what they'll do is they'll take a pallet or two off the truck and hand it to, so they'll bring it somewhere. Let's just say it's alcohol. Say it's liquor. They'll load 20 pallets of liquor. It's supposed to go to a major retailer. They'll stop midway in transit, take 2 of those pallets off, bring them into, I mean, it could be your local liquor store for all you know. Drive the rest of the way. They'll doctor the paperwork and make it look like 18 pallets, and they'll have clean paperwork signed for 18 pallets. And oftentimes they'll submit it in, they'll get paid on that. But what happens is the shipper will not realize that 2 pallets are missing until they do inventory. That might be months down the road. So we do see some of that. But ultimately, most of these instances in where things are preventable are before the cargo is even shipped. And to even go further with it, what many people don't realize, oftentimes the driver who is stealing the cargo, they're pawns in the scheme. They're being exploited themselves. And I'll give you an example. Back during COVID, when there was considerably more individuals coming across our borders illegally. Individuals were being smuggled into this country, and it would cost anywhere from $40,000 to $100,000 to get into this country. Well, a lot of those individuals don't have that money to do so. So when they get over here, their labor is exploited. They're put in a truck. They're paid pennies on the dollar compared to what a normal truck driver is getting paid. And they work until they pay those wages off. Well, like anybody will tell you, once you're within those criminal networks, they got their hooks in you, and they're going to exploit you. They're going to exploit your family. And oftentimes these individuals, they don't have any other, there's nothing else they can do. And what happens is they get put in a position where they either can't pay them, they need to make more money, they get in trouble, a variety of things that can happen. And that's when those individuals say, well, if you want out of it, do this. Go pick up this shipment here and bring it to this warehouse, and then go disappear for a little while. And that is perpetuating all of this. The individual drivers themselves, they have very little skin in the game. Yes, they are the bad actor, but a lot of times they have plausible deniability. They just pretend like, well, I didn't know any difference. My dispatcher told me to pick up this shipment and take it from point A to point B. Well, who's your dispatcher? Oh, he's some random guy that I hired, and blah, 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 blah. And they don't have real relationships. So it's very hard to tie all these things together and figure out who the actual bad actor is.
Yeah, I agree. Victor, so what's one thing that freight broker thinks they are doing it right, but actually is not right to prevent this?
If you're not verifying the identity, and if you're not verifying that the side of the truck matches, the other thing too is if you're not verifying that the driver is listed on the insurance policy and that the equipment being used, the truck and trailer VIN, are not listed on that insurance policy, if something goes wrong, you're going to have a problem.
Exactly.
And ultimately, these conversations need to be had with shippers, the shippers that you work for, and they need to. There needs to be a open communication and open dialogue. Brokers need to work with shippers and explain to them that these are some of the problems that are happening in the industry, and you need to care about it, because that's one of the things I see with a lot of shippers. Shippers generally have a line of credit with a freight brokerage. They might owe them millions of dollars in some cases. So if a shipment goes missing, they don't really care. They're looking at the situation like it's the broker's responsibility, and that's all I want to have to do with it. But in reality, when that product gets out onto the black market and somebody gets sick eating your product, it's on you. You're going to have that problem. Your name is on the side of that. So oftentimes these shippers act like they don't care, and maybe it's higher up on the food chain than the individuals that are, handling transportation. But realize, if your product gets out there into the open market and it's tainted, somebody gets sick, you're exposing your brand. And then it looks really bad. Oh, we had a shipment that got stolen, and it got into the supply chain. Well, who's comfortable eating candy bars that somebody stole that are now on the black market? I don't want to eat those candy bars, but somebody, you don't know where they've been. No clue.
Yeah, this is so eye-opening, Victor, and I agree that shippers just give all the responsibility to freight brokers, but especially on high-value cargo, I think it's very important to also have, this care from shipper side, not only broker. So we talk this off the camera, but I would love you to explain, what does proper driver verification actually look like in practice? Can you please explain?
So we want to identify the driver, the actual individual. We want to match that with their license. We want to verify their credentials on that license. Is that ID a real ID? Is it a fake ID? Are these drivers, do they carry a CDL? We want to verify those things. And then we want to verify that that individual driver is covered under the insurance policy for the motor carrier. So we want to verify, we want to match all of those things together, tie the links together, and then say, this driver is who they say they are.
Yes.
And we want to follow that, essentially. If a driver goes and working for a new company, he'll re-verify. We want to tie all these things together, not to be intrusive, but to protect ourselves and to understand that there are bad actors in this marketplace. And if you don't, you're in logistics. Everyone has had fraud hit them. Every company in the last 5 years. Well, I've been in this industry 20 years, and I can tell you that 5 years ago, I was not concerned about cargo theft one bit. I had a little bit about double brokering, a little bit about somebody scamming in fuel advance or something like that. I wasn't worried about somebody stealing cargo. I was looked at like, what are you going to do with it anyways? Oh,
yes.
Not anymore. Not anymore. And the reason it exists is because we were very lax as an industry on this. We were heavily commoditized. Shippers wanted to push rates down as low as they possibly could go. And we didn't have an option with it.
No, we didn't.
And that's where the education piece and explaining to shippers why you're different. And hey, we take an extra 15 minutes to verify someone. And think about it, 15 minutes. You're giving somebody in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of cargo.
Yes.
And you're not going to take 15 minutes. You're not going to do it. Like, how asinine is that? But yet people do it every day.
Every day. I agree. So you mentioned about onboarding data. What trends are you seeing with drivers right now with this data?
What we have seen, the biggest thing that we have seen is bad actors will not verify their identity. They absolutely will not verify their identity. We have not had a single instance. We've moved over 100,000 shipments have moved through our portal. We've not had a single instance of cargo theft. I can't name an instance of double brokering. Now, could there be some nefarious things that have went on? Sure. But we have not identified a single thing in 100,000 shipments, amongst 100,000 shipments.
Wow. So what about these non-domiciled drivers? How does that impact the fraud, capacity, and risk?
There is more risk with non-domiciled drivers. Studies have shown that, and this is not me reporting, this is things that I have heard, that 80-90% of cargo theft has a non-domiciled driver involved. Now, I want to be clear, non-domiciled does not mean what a lot of people think it means. Non-domiciled is a state issue, not a federal issue. So if you're a non-domiciled driver, it means you're not domiciled to the state. I'm located in Ohio. If I wanted to get a driver, or if I wanted to get an identification, say I worked for a shipper I had a CDL and I worked for a trucking company out of Kentucky, I would have a non-domiciled license to Kentucky. That doesn't mean I'm not a U.S. citizen or that I don't have legal status. Even if you have legal status, the probability of you having a non-domiciled license is high. So I want to be careful about I don't want to associate anybody who's in this country illegally and operating equipment, operating without, I don't want to associate them as, associate the two, non-domiciled them. There is.
They are different, yes.
Not every non-domiciled driver is a nefarious actor. The vast majority of them are not. But there are some commonalities with cargo theft and non-domiciled drivers.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for clarifying. So basically, you mean this is like outside state driver, right? Yes.
Outside of the state. It's outside of the state. You're non-domiciled to the state, not the federal government. So there is a difference with that.
Well, that's very interesting, and thank you for clarifying. So, Victor, if fraud continues at this level, what does that to do the freight rates long term? How does this affect capacity, especially with regulatory pressure increasing and fuel pricing?
Ultimately, what we're going to see is we're going to see barriers of entry for new carriers. So new asset-based motor carriers, it's going to be that much harder for them to operate and start a business. That's not good. That's going to drive freight rates up. You know, think about how long it should take you to get a CDL. I know there's some people who circumvent the process, but in all reality, it's not as simple as getting a driver's license. There needs to be some qualifications for these individuals to get behind the wheel. You're going to see insurance rates go up throughout this, and ultimately, you're going to see the market contract. There's going to be less players in the market, and it's going to be more expensive to ship your goods. This is going to cause inflation, and it's going to trickle down to the consumer level. Currently, we're kind of in the middle of the market taking off, which it hasn't done in quite a while. And think about it this way: if there's a truckload of produce that goes from California to New York, I venture to say that the price to ship that is going to be 50% higher than what it was last year.
Wow.
So if it's a $50,000 truckload and it costs $5,000 more to ship it across the country, that's 10% more. That head of lettuce is going to cost you considerably more. And while you're going to see that in certain items, it may take 6 months to a year for it to really hit the entire supply chain. But once it hits, it's not going back. You're not going to find cheaper labor in this. And this is just to transport goods. So what does that mean? It means shippers are going to send less freight. It's going to cause an overall contraction of the economy just because freight rates went up. It's not a good situation. There's a game that needs to be played here. While we want drivers to be high earning income individuals, we want them to be able to do well. It's not an easy job. Who wants to go out on the road for 3 weeks at a time and not see your family? That's not easy. So we want to make sure that they get what they're due. But at the same extent, if it costs more to ship your goods, less goods are going to get shipped. And last time I checked, I know my wife loves Amazon next day and 2-day delivery, and that's not changing anytime soon. So if you want to get your product next day, well, you're going to have to pay for it.
Exactly. Well, Victor, off camera, you also shared that you have some relationship with Congress and federal kind of level. What do they say can prevent all of this? Because it feels like only freight brokers are responsible for this, but in reality, that's not true.
The administration's definitely taken notice. It's a very delicate situation because, again, even the things that the FMCSA and the Department of Transportation are doing, we need this labor. I mean, if we remove all this labor out of the marketplace, it's going to have unintended consequences. And yes, we want our roads to be safer. We want individuals to be vetted and insured and do all the things properly. But if you pull the plug on it too fast and you're not very surgical with this situation, then it's going to get bad, and it's going to get bad fast. And it's going to cause companies, they're not going to be able to compete in the marketplace. That's what you don't want. So I don't envy their position. I do really think they're taking notice. I think this is one of the top priorities for the administration currently. And I'm very happy in the discussions I've had with members of Congress that there's a lot of bipartisan support, that everyone recognizes that this is a major problem. And it's one of the very few things that I've seen or hear about where it seems like Congress is working together for bipartisan solutions.
Yes, because it's like nationwide situation and the problem, right? There is no division in this.
There isn't, and there's no. This isn't a blue or red issue. It's actually. I'm surprised in my discussions with individuals how much they agree that something needs to be done and that something needs to be fixed with the situation. So I'm optimistic, but there's a lot of chance. This is not going to be an easy task. It's been neglected for decades.
I agree. Well, thank you from all of us to, taking steps, not only just creating the platform, but also introducing this problem to higher level, like government level. But I also wanted to ask, because it's very interesting to know, what kind of fraud have you actually prevented with your
Um,
technology?
so we've had several circumstances. I'm trying to think about how much I can really disclose, but
Give us the most interesting
we
ones.
we've had several circumstances. We had one this week that I it was jaw dropping. An individual was going to pick up a shipment, and we could see a couple flags. We could see that
Mm-hmm.
they were actively trying to spoof our location, and
Oh,
that was there was something wrong. So we let the brokerage know that was working with us and said, "Hey, we see something here. Like I would be. This is like a total red flag for us." Um, when that individual showed up at the shipper, uh, there were definite red flags with it. There were false IDs. There was another MC number on the side of the truck. They were using like a magnet to cover it up. It looked very good. You couldn't really tell on a picture. There was a lot of things going on, and sure enough, as they dug a little deeper, we did an investigation on the VIN numbers. It was associated with some very bad actors. So we gave that information to authorities, said, "Hey, this is what we saw. This is what we believe." And they followed up with us and said, "This was like a fantastic catch. Like that shipment would have been gone." And so we'll see what they do with it. Hopefully it gives them some information to prosecute some individuals. But that stuff we catch. Generally speaking, though, we prevent fraud before it even it doesn't get that far. The vast majority of individuals will not come into our ecosystem. They'll avoid it completely. And I think that's where our product really stands out. We don't have to do a lot of investigating because they just simply won't go near us. Will not go
yes.
near us. So
Yes, that's what I also love about your product, that you preventing it rather than already things happening. Because once the theft stole the cargo, it's already difficult to recover, right? There is a
yeah,
statistics that was saying 70% is not recovered, or
yeah.
how
Oh, the vast majority, more than that, is never
more
recovered.
than that. Yeah.
The, the and the reason that I got involved in this, I had a personal incident where we had a shipment stolen for the brokerage that I own. I went down a rabbit hole. I figured out who these individuals were, and uh, it got pretty dark pretty fast. I had death threats about some of the things that I had uncovered, and it wasn't good. So that upset me. And I have other friends in the industry that I've seen had their lives ruined by this. They've lost their biggest account. These were guys that had very, very good incomes and a very good living, and they were very respected in the industry. And somebody came in and stole a shipment from them. They lost the big account, and poof,
Yes.
everything was gone. Their whole life was turned upside down by this person. Like, it's really sad to see that happen. And for me, that upsets me more than anything else. Watching one of your friends have their lives ruined, where you're their child's godfather, and now they're going through financial trouble, and they're a shell of themselves because of what's happened to them. They're a victim in this whole thing, and it's like everybody seems to kind of forget that. That makes me angry, and there's nothing that upsets me more. So that is a big reason behind this. Um, I'm not out here. I want to go after these individuals. Make no mistake about it. This is not like it is not my intention to grow a platform and sell it for millions of dollars and
Mm-hmm.
be rich and famous. Has nothing to do with it. It's actually out of spite and wanting to go after these people. That's what I care about more.
Yes, to help us as a freight broker to prevent this tragedy, right?
Freight brokerage is an industry I love. I hold very near and dear. I have so many friends that have built very fantastic lives for themselves and watched all these individuals. There's nothing like going to. I was recently at a wedding, and it was a buddy of mine that worked for another freight brokerage. We had all kind of come from the same places. We all knew each other, And I remember at one point speaking to the owner of his company and saying to him, like, you have to be proud. Like, all of these individuals, there were 100 people at this wedding. All of these people's families, like, if it weren't for you, they might not be in the same situation. And he started laughing with me. He was like, man, I never really thought of it that way. I'm like, yeah, I would be very proud. Like, I don't even know you. And if it weren't for you, I probably wouldn't be in the position I'm in. And it's funny.
Yeah.
When you see somebody get taken advantage of like that, it's really upsetting.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for doing what you are doing, Victor. But correlated from the last questions that you caught theft because you checked and verified the driver, I want to talk about my sponsor, Digital Permit Book, because this ties directly into what we were talking. If you are running a tracking company, managing fleets, or dealing with compliance, you already know how many messy paperwork you can have, permits and inspections can get. That's why I work with Digital Permit Book. They basically take all the cows, permits, safety documents, DOT compliance, and organize it into clean and digital systems. So check them out. And if
Lydia,
you are
I've looked at their they have a fantastic platform. I would
yes.
encourage I would I would encourage all of your listeners to take a look at it because it is a fantastic platform. I can testify to it. Unbelievable.
Thank you so much for sharing. You actually third guest that talks about them. I don't partner with not fantastic people and with not fantastic guests or sponsors. That's for sure. They are amazing. And I think it's very helpful for tracking companies because you also say that you had a tracking company, right? Or you
I
were
have, yes.
yeah, so imagine all of these paperwork. Before, I am sure we didn't have that. When I started, I didn't have this
No,
digitalized thing. It was all paperwork.
it is, and
Mhm.
things get lost, and coffee gets spilled on
Exactly,
on invoices, and people get upset, and there's delays and lags, and
exactly.
yeah,
And sometimes you have to bring the driver out of nowhere so he can get this updated IFTA or insurance, right? So
oh,
it's
it
such
is the paperwork, and like God bless them because it is very challenging, and I've seen horror stories and heard horror stories about people that neglect those things, and yeah, it's not it's not fun.
yeah. Well, Victor, so now I have a rapid fire fun question, no overthinking. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Biggest fraud mistake brokers make.
Uh, Not having identity verification,
One red flag you never ignore.
not having not when someone doesn't want to verify their identity.
Yes, tracking or verification. I already know.
Who tracking
Okay. Paperwork or identity. What matters more?
identity.
Most shocking fraud case you have ever seen.
The one I was involved in personally, and I'll pause real quick and go into detail a little bit what happened. We had a
Yes.
shipment stolen. Oh, I'm sorry. We identified somebody who's trying to steal a shipment. They actually then set up another freight brokerage. Again, these were totally legitimate companies. Stole the shipment. We found the shipment. They were able to go to the warehouse, steal it again. So this happened like 3 or 4 times. It was like a 3 week saga, and
Wow.
that's when I was threatened, and yeah, sent pictures of my wife and kids. But I don't think he cared for the fact that I was able to figure out who he was as well. So
Wow.
it was an interesting situation to say the
Very
least.
interesting. Well, next one. Is fraud getting worse or it just becomes more visible?
Uh, I think both. It is becoming. If it was, it's not becoming better, and that's what's concerning. It's not getting better, and I think a lot of it's going unreported. So we don't know how bad of an issue this really is. What's reported is that it was up 1,500% from 2024 to 2025, or from in a very short time period, it was up 1,500%. Well, it's not going down. And in some of the fraud task force I've worked with, they've made some big arrests, and it hasn't put a dent in things. I see the numbers on a very regular basis. We have not seen this get curbed. So I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Okay, what do you think? Will AI help stop fraud or make it worse?
It will help, but it's going to take the individuals. As an individual, you need to know how to use AI. It's a tool. You have to know how to use the tool. It's that simple. It's not going to fix everything for you.
Mm-hmm. One word to describe the current freight situation.
Oh, it's a mess. It's a mess. That's as best I can say it.
Future of freight security in one sentence.
Identity verification.
I knew that's exactly what you're gonna say.
Yep.
Thank you, Victor. Our rapid fire questions is over and you did amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, as we discussed, freight is no longer just about moving loads, it's about controlling risk, because once a load is gone, it's gone. And more than 70% of stolen freight is never recovered. This isn't about fixing problem after, it is about preventing them before they start. And as Victor said, driver identity verification, right? So, Victor, I appreciate you coming and breaking this down for us. This was very eye-opening and interesting, and I'm sure my listeners got a lot of value, and I personally learned a lot of stuff from this conversation. So, thank you so much what you are doing.
For having me.
Yes. And for everyone listening, please join us. We're doing more podcasts lately, and I would love your support, likes, comments, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.